Good morning. Thank y'all for coming, and thanks for the invite for us to come. I'm Ginger Bennett. I'm Supervisor of Interpreter Services for Austin Community College. And this is our Executive Director, Steve Christopher, of Special Populations. And Special Populations is where our in-house captioning is housed, and it's actually under me. So I have learned that if you want to get to know something much more intimately, supervise it. And I'm sure many of you have had the same experience.
How many of you all do in-house captioning at your place of business? Some of you. How many are thinking about it? Like, yeah, okay. So this presentation is designed for you all who are thinking about, should we do this in-house? Should we use a third party? And Ginger will go into many of the details about how we actually do it. Know that we depend on, and she'll go into this a little bit more, we depend on hourly workers to do our captioning. And we spend between $10,000 to $15,000 a year for 4 to 5 people to caption, and we caption around 100 hours of material, 6,000 minutes of material. That's roughly what you get for that, and she'll go into it more in depth.
All right. We all know why we caption. We all know our laws. And then we also know why it's just a good thing. Captions help me, captions help my deaf friends. So here are some other ideas we came along with. Also, we found a study done by Oregon State, if y'all haven't seen that yet, that they actually did a poll of all their students and realized that 98.6% said that captions helped them. Wow. And then another 75% said, yeah, it's actually a learning tool that I employ.
So if you start putting captions on all your media material, there might be initial pushback from students who don't need the captioning. They're like, oh, that bothers me down there. But know that after really a few minutes of acclimation, they'll start depending on reading the captioning and hearing the material. And so you're developing a multimodal delivery system simply by having the captioning there, and it does improve retention and learning.
It works just like having an interpreter in the classroom. I hear it all the time. Instructors will say to me, oh my goodness, the students are going to pay more attention to the sign language interpreters than they're going to pay to me. And I encourage them, give it a day. They won't even notice we're there.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Back to like the first slide when it came to show that we know the laws.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too sure about that. I mean, I don't know the laws, so I was wondering what. So we mentioned earlier about we can caption whenever we get a student that needs captioning, or actually somebody mentioned that we need captioning day one. So we need it done, even before we know somebody needs captioning. So where does it say that? Because I would really like to have something to bring back and say, this is where it says we need captioning.
The guidelines don't say
Right.
you have to caption day one. The legal framework from which we develop the captioning process says that all instructional material has to be accessible to all users. So if you have, for most of us, 90% of our users are sighted and can hear, but that gives you a 10% group who either cannot hear or cannot see. And the law is very clear that all our instructional material, all our web-based material, anything that the institution puts out must be accessible to all people. And so you risk the chance if you go, well, we're not going to do captioning until we need it, especially in an online environment. Especially in that. You may have a student who signed up who didn't request accommodations, but and maybe didn't realize there might be media material on there, and all of a sudden you're getting emails going, hey, I can't access this material. You're in week 1, you're like, oh my God, now we're in week 2, oh my God, now we're in week 3, now we have to do this. And if you have a particularly activist student who says, whoa, 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 you're denying me my access to my instructional material, you're in deep before you even know what happened. You don't want to go there. We've been the recipients of some letters and other things, and it's very disruptive. It's very disruptive to be involved in that sort of a litigation process. So there is nothing that says you must caption. There is everything in the law that says all your material must be accessible. And so captioning is one way to make it accessible to deaf students particularly.
We get a lot of pushback too. So if we tell that student to go to disability services and they'll translate for you, does that count, or?
What do you mean they'll translate for you?
Oh, if we send them to the disabilities department and that department helps them.
Sure. So before we got the capacity to do closed captioning, Ginger runs our interpreter services area. What would a typical scenario would be in the classroom, instructor would throw up a video, we would have interpreters in there, and the interpreter would interpret during the video or the film. That's not exactly equal access, because in a environment where language is visual, you have, if she's the interpreter, you're going back and forth, you're not really being able to focus on one thing. So it's not exactly equal. But then the next generation of instructors would go, okay, I'm going to show this video and I'm going to post it on Blackboard so you can watch it further. Then you actually create a scenario where you're discriminating against the student who cannot hear, because all the other students can watch the video any old time they want, 2 in the morning, watch the video. The person who depends on a sign language interpreter will depend on them showing up to be able to interpret the video. So you're creating a difference in access ability. So you want to, and so if you send them to your disability services office to caption, if they're the people who do the captioning, those are not instantaneous. I know this last presentation made it look like, oh, you just like put it up there and you got voice recognition and boom, it's 100% accurate. That was, the video that was used there is very nice and clear English. However, many of our instructors use less than optimal technology. Some of them have accents, some of them, you know, so the voice capture technology has errors in it, even if it's 95% correct. In an academic setting, that one word that is not accurate and is gonna be on the test, you know, it's like, whoa, that, you know, so it has to be 100% accurate. So you can run your video through a voice recognition system, but you need some editing follow-up, and that takes time, and typically it's not, I got a Tuesday class and my material will be ready on Thursday. It may be a week, it may be by Thursday, but you're already behind because the other students have immediate access, and this one or group of students they have to wait, so they're behind.
Question for you guys, because you said whoever is responsible for that. I don't know if everybody else is dealing with this issue, but
Yes.
you guys are reasonable, you're enlightened, you
Yeah.
know what's
Yeah.
happening. That's not the situation at a lot of our
Yeah.
institutions. So, what has happened is it's fallen on my office as basically a one office person.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, whose responsibility is it? I mean, we all want to take care of students. I mean, that's, but there comes a time when you have to be reasonable about it, and that's what this is all about.
Well, the institution is responsible.
Yes.
But how do you do it? There's typically two parties that are responsible. Most institutions, they run through their IDS or IRT group, the folks that support instructional
Did you say
development.
support? I'm sorry. Okay.
Or in our case, and I gotta look around the room and see who's here, there was too much foot dragging. And I said, and being responsible for disability services, I said, look, we are exposed. I can't wait for the foot dragging. We've already waited 10 years. I mean, we knew we needed to be doing this back in the 90s when ADA became law. And I can't wait anymore. I'm just going to do it. So we pulled it in. We said, well, wait, this is giving communication access to deaf students. We already provide sign language interpreters. We already do CART. So this is another method to do that. But that is an institutional choice. For you all who are like, we're stuck, nobody cares. I think, so first thing is you need some advocates on campus. Generally, your best person is your immediate supervisor or their supervisor. I have been doing this for 20 plus years, and you go, oh God, you guys are all enlightened, and you got everything you need, and you got a budget and all that. No, it's a process.
Well, and here's my struggle. I come from your world. I did that for 15 years. That's my baby, and I just got in this world. It just kind of happened. And so I've kind of taken it on, but it is the entire, because it's like we talked about earlier, it's not just online courses. Right. And so I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, does this department handle these videos and I handle because nobody will, and I'm just waiting for the lawsuit to happen. And then
Schools our size, the schools the size of yours or whatever, we're usually the champions.
Right.
And that it's not going to change. It's just not. I mean, like I said, you have to kind of, like you said, it's an evolution, it's a process,
Right.
it is maybe getting burned once or twice and
Yeah.
saying, told you so,
Yeah.
That can push things too, is the student who says, enough is enough. I'm gonna contact OCR, I'm gonna get legal advice, whatever.
See, we have that visit in the spring,
And
and I have a feeling that's when this is all
it may
gonna-
take a couple, because somebody has to respond to those, and their life totally gets disrupted. In our world, it was generally it was faculty issues. It was our vice president of instruction, and every time he turned around, he goes, I'm completing these legal briefs and this OCR stuff. They're all in our business. We got open records. It's like, that's my whole life. What are we doing wrong? And like, I'm there like, glad you asked. Here you go. You want that off your table? Here's what we need to do.
I was gonna say, at our campus, it's not even a matter of who has administrative responsibility, who has financial responsibility.
Right.
Like, when I brought up the idea of captioning, it was like, oh, well, if you can find a way to squeeze it out of the e-learning budget.
Right.
The budget I already had, which wouldn't have,
That you'd already prepared for the
wouldn't have covered 10 hours,
That's a non-answer, as you well know.
Yeah.
And again, push comes to shove, and especially in smaller schools, they'll go, we got nothing. The law is very clear on that, and in this case, say if your institution got sued and the answer was we don't have any money, they don't go to your budget. They go to the institutional budget. So, you know, in ACC's case, hold your breath, it's a very large budget that's, you know, $320 million a year. Well, what can't you squeeze out of that? A smaller institution, say $50 million a year, that is a lot of money. And you can't find 50,000? It's like, yes, you can, and again, if push comes to shove, OCR will say, yes, you can, and you need to do that. So you don't want to get into that situation. I like the word champions, using champions, finding somebody who gets it. And I always tell my staff, look, I'm playing long ball. I don't get everything today, but I start that conversation, we keep pushing, and eventually you'll get to critical mass where it's like, okay, we need to do something. Sorry.
And this is what we did. We said, okay, we've got to get this done. How best can we do that? So we started doing some research and trying to figure out what it would cost us to hire some hourly folks who were super champ typists and super champ editors. How would this look? What would we do? So we said, okay. Steve said, why don't you go ahead and interview 5? I did. They all looked good on paper. And he said, and they did well in their interviews, and he said, if you like them, keep them. They're working hourly, max 19 hours a week. So what that means is you can give them all a try. Let them get some time in this and see what happens. And if somebody's not really up to par, okay, we rotate them out and bring in someone new if we need them. It also gave us an opportunity to really hit the backlog we had at that point of captioning needs and go for it all at one time and really try to knock it out. We were able to do that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second.
And these are hourly. This is sort of version 1.
How much did you pay per hour?
15.
15 an hour, based on sort of local rates compared to what that kind of work is. And understand that we're looking to make this more stable. So eventually we'll take the hourly funds we use and develop it into a staffing table position. But again, you're playing long ball, one step at a time, one step at a time. I couldn't get money for a staff person, but I can move money around and figure out how to do hourly in one way, shape, or form. So that's what we have now, and it actually does give us some nice flexibility.
And we actually have one person who does work a full 19 hours a week, and that's our captionist liaison. The others work minimum couple of hours to the max of 19. Basically, they come over to our campus. When they have time, they sit down, they look in their queue, see what they have available, and get busy.
Oh, and we have no space. She's being very nice about that. There was like, oh look, there's a space for captioners. Like, no, we're double and triple booked here. They come and go, find a computer in our area, or in some occasions they'll have to go into a computer lab, have very cooperative people say, yeah, there's a computer, they can sit there and work on it. Getting space for them, again, is version 2. It's just like, let's make this happen. Let's get videos captioned.
So how do we do it? We use Amara. And I know you guys have just seen Amara.
So we started, it was interesting to get this started. We knew we needed to caption. We knew we needed some software, hardware. So through a grant, we went and purchased a DocSoft appliance, which is basically a server. But we didn't have people who could do it yet. So we bought that. We hired our 5 hourlies, and they started working on the DocSoft appliance. Well, everything looked good on paper, I'll just say. Any DocSoft folks here? It looked good on paper, but frankly, the folks who were captioning found the editing function very clunky, very slow. There's a voice recognition piece to the DocSoft appliance which will speed up the captioning, but it was relatively slow in recognizing the voice, a lot of mistakes, but mainly the editing was slow to be able to edit. So they did a scan, an environmental scan. They found Amara. It was free, good grief, and the editing functioning was very much simpler to use, much quicker. We were able to turn out a lot of material, but that was a misstep on our part to buy that appliance first. But we didn't have people actually doing the work to know whether that was the right thing.
So here are some advantages. There's no installation. Connection to the web, you're in. The platform works with anything. You can have as many users as you need working on it all at the same time. Other free or commercial alternatives can be costly. It's a very simple, intuitive interface, so it's easy to use. And this is what it looks like as we go. You've got your preview window, the editing window, and the caption timeline. And what's really nice about the timeline is it's a simple mouse movement. You can change it up just by using the mouse. Because historically, as we all know, the fun was in memorizing all of the keyboard controls. Control this does this, control, all of those keys we had to take care of. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the firewalls can be an issue, so that is something you'll want to investigate with your IT folks. And then we found just a few disadvantages. It will only support streaming videos from YouTube, Vimeo, that type setup. It cannot caption the locally hosted videos from a hard drive. So what do we do in that case? If they're not already hosted on the streaming service, on one of these streaming services, then we have to get it hosted on our streaming service in order for us to work with it. There's no flash support, so we can only stream the videos from the media servers using the newest HTML5 protocol. And then the question was, but suppose we don't have HTML, then what are we going to do? If you don't have it, then it's going to be necessary to use a third-party hosting service, such as Amazon S3, or really put that big plug-in to get HTML5.
Well, you have media on HTML4, and you may have media on HTML3. Those will be much more difficult to caption through Amara, and you'll have to take several steps to be able to use it.
What does our workflow look like? So we have a requester requesting their captions. They go through, they'll send us an email, and we'll send them a link for our online form requesting captioning. We'll process the request, and then it will be assigned to a captionist. They'll create the captions, send them back to the liaison, who then sends them out to the requester.
The idea is a single point of contact. Even though we have multiple people doing the captioning, you want just one voice talking with faculty
Right.
or whomever you're working with.
Are y'all going to share your presentation?
We'd love to.
Okay.
Absolutely. So this is our web-based form. I'll include a link for that as well when we're sharing, so you guys can go in and take a look. And we had to get fairly specific. Of course, you know, with everything, it's a process. So first we get a form out there. Yes, we have a form. It's web-based. Then we start getting them back, but what about this and what about this? We're recognizing we need a few more things, so we added a few more things, and we're looking at this one as being close to exactly right. As with anything, it's a living document. It'll change.
And of course, you got to keep it simple enough that people will use it.
Right.
Because, you know, they just want to call you, hey, you got it in the email. This is also a back-end tracking system, too, that dumps into an Excel spreadsheet.
And what we did, because we use Google Mail, we asked our IT folks to create an alias email for us called captionmymedia@austincc.edu, and that is solely used for the purpose of getting the forms, getting the request, responding. So that way it's not interfering with any other email that we may do. We have several, in my area, we have several alias emails so that we can keep our work separated and, goodness, not get lost in the thousands of emails. Now, one question that we had was, how do you get the videos and how does this work? We usually will work with an MP4 video, but honestly, we can accept it in any form. We may just have to work with our IT group to get it into the form that we can actually caption. Excuse me.
And we have seen every
Yeah.
platform.
Yes.
I mean, it's crazy what people will record media on. So they're pretty savvy on, oh, here's a file I've never seen before, and they figure it out.
So this is what it looks like when it comes to us. This is how the information comes to us, and then our liaison takes this, puts it into our spreadsheet, all Google, and then I'll just give you a few things here just to point out some different things that are important. And you notice we have different levels. We have the low level, low priority level. What that means is that perhaps an instructor has an idea that they will have a deaf student or hard of hearing student that will need captions, and they may want to be on the ball, and they'll just go ahead and send it to us and say, okay, for the second 8 weeks, I'm thinking I'm going to have a deaf student, so let's go ahead and get them captioned. And sometimes, now that we've been able to get the word out, instructors are actually seeking us out. Can I go ahead and get this done? And that is a huge, huge win. Because basically, like Steve talked about, we started where all of us have started with, oh my gosh, how in the world will we ever get this to happen, to now we actually have instructors on board, and that can just do wonders for PR.
So you're really talking about changing culture is what you're doing. This is just a symptom of the change in culture, and we expect over time that more and more instructors won't consider whether they have a deaf student in the class or will have a deaf student. They'll go, oh, I made a video, I got a video, want to make sure that it's captioned, and they'll just send it off, and hence the priority piece comes into play. You know, do they need it right now or do they need it at some point?
On our request form, we do not allow them to request a date less than 2 weeks out. We were able to actually program that into the form because we were getting so many requests. I'm going to need this tomorrow. Okay, that's fabulous. And who do you have in your pocket who's going to do this for you? Because we simply cannot. And we don't all understand the process. Yes, ma'am.
Have you tried or had any success with telling instructors that, I mean, I understand old videos, but as they're making new videos, they have to use a script and send a script to you?
Gee, that makes so much sense. How can I say
That comes to
this?
the, have you had any success with it?
ACC,
Reality?
ACC is not going to mandate that kind of activity of instructors. We do an adoption process, education process. Not perfect, of course, because you're going to have resistors, but the administration is loath to make that
I mean, 'cause
mandate.
even with a script, most people get off of it, so you would still need a
Right.
person
Sure.
to do that, but a script would just help a lot.
Well, and we also know that, and we've asked for that at times, that a lot of instructors will actually do extemporaneous. There's no script. They've just got like a couple of things they want to talk about, and they'll talk it through.
I had a kind of a question, and you kind of triggered my question there. But do you or maybe your media department or anyone like that, do they provide any to your staff or your faculty any just video creation guidelines? You know, like keep it between 2 to 3 minutes, or whatever. Make sure you're wearing not loud colors or what just little things like that to kind of to have them maybe trigger them to think about what they're doing instead of recording the Exxon intro.
That's a great question. We have a fairly robust instructional design team. They're campus-based and district-wide based. However, again, they don't mandate anything, so you have to seek them out.
Yeah.
But we also have information on the website. Again, requires you to seek it out. Best practices for developing video. Those are great things, and makes our job easier if it's done correctly.
Yeah. And many times they don't know what they don't know. Right?
Exactly.
At San Jacinto College, before we record or do any video, we request the script and we tell them the do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
And usually, sometimes we get a pushback, well, what do you mean you need a script? But once they have the script, they come back, oh, yeah, this is really great because it reminded me I needed to mention this. So we started that during the summer, and it really has helped a lot. And like I said, we did get pushback from a few faculty, but once they saw that we would not record unless they had that script, they were like, it reminded me I needed to do this and that. So it can happen.
It could be something like easy in the PowerPoint, or
I
something
was
like that.
wondering, basically, this is a question for the group. Have you ever tried Windows speech recognition? So maybe if an instructor is recording a video, they're doing the Windows speech recognition at the same time, so it's doing the transcribing. Has anybody tried?
I use the Mac version and also Dragon Dictate.
How does Dragon generally work for you?
Iffy. About as good as YouTube. I mean, it's like one of those badly reading videos occasionally, I mean, it's fairly accurate. I mean, again, you were mentioned earlier, it depends on the speaker, the diction, and the, clarity and so on.
Well, because Dragon is supposed to learn it
As you go.
Yeah.
just like Windows.
There's a
so
light
that's-
version that's free, but then there's a paid version that may be a little better. I don't know.
Again, in the academic setting, all these voice recognition softwares claim 90%, 95% accuracy, which sounds like, hey, if I got a 95% on my test, I'm like an A student. But when you actually see what 90 or 95% looks like, there are way too many errors in there. One in every 10 words, which is like a word a sentence, or a whole sentence out of a paragraph is.
But it would still help as far as how much you have to type in.
Well, that is, I think she's going to talk about whether they, sometimes the captionist will start with that, but it really depends on the accuracy. If it has too many errors, it actually takes longer, and they would rather just start with the audio track and go from there.
With the Windows, I have used it, and it's fairly accurate, but it works on, you have to train it for your voice, and you have to get the prof to train it, to understand them, or else it's not gonna be that accurate.
So you actually tried it with your own?
No, just used it personally, just personal usage, and you can tell whether it's gonna work or not.
I mean, we all love autocorrect, right? On our cell phones? Right.
Well, in the training aspect too, you're getting these one-off videos, so it doesn't have time to really train. So it can help. I'm not dismissing it at all, but it's not your solution.
And understand too that our, going back to, pardon me, how long it may take to get something done is going to be different for each piece that comes in, because a documentary will take less time than a lecture. Just something that our liaison pointed out to me. He's like, yeah, you know, we get those documentaries, we can whip right through those, but you get that lecture, and that instructor is talking, oh, by the way, did we talk about that other thing that we were going to, did y'all see the bunny rabbit that just ran across the, some of us are like that, okay, and so perhaps we haven't had our speech class yet, or we've not gone to Toastmasters to understand, right, mm-hmm.
So when you're doing a documentary, approximately how long does it take per minute?
Go back.
Because we ended up with an hour per minute.
Right, it can.
No.
You're absolutely correct. There we go. See if we've got a, I don't even know if we have a documentary in here. Mhm. So,
Completion estimates, is that hours and minutes? And the video length is hours, minutes, seconds?
yes. So,
Speaking of
It really
Toastmasters, do we
varies.
transcribe every and
Yeah. It really varies on the source, how long it will take to caption. One of the things I think we didn't cover is we initially did third party. We
Yes.
looked at that, and we did a cost analysis, third party versus in-house. Third party, awesomely clean. It's like you just send it to somebody, you get it back. You usually get it back fairly quickly. But as we dug into the true cost of that, we actually found that the in-house, unless you're paying them $100 an hour, you know, in-house will be generally cheaper over time, and you have there's advantages and disadvantages to both. Well, we do use a third party when push comes to shove, and we need something very quickly, and we're already at capacity. So we have two options, but we generally keep it in-house.
and this is just what each captionist has. Actually, we call them captioned media editors because that's what they're doing. They're editing all this media that's coming through. Again, we do everything in Google, and this was our low priority queue. This is what it looks like, and our very first liaison gave her own little quip here as to how to go about doing that. So, and then this is what we send back. And the one thing we really absolutely must get from an instructor or from anyone who has requested captions, let us know that you received this and that you know what you're doing with it. Because sometimes we get the response from this, the response comes back, I tried to use it, it didn't work. Okay, let's walk through the process. Even after we have put in written instructions, and still, as we all know, sometimes it's just not enough. So our captionist liaison has actually gone and sat in a professor's office with them and walked them through that process. We're totally okay doing that. We do what we need to do to make sure that we're being accessible.
So y'all don't attach the captions to the video, your instructors do that, you just send them the SRT copy?
We send them the file with the captions, and then they play it.
And notice they got it back in two formats. That was probably some discussion with the instructor about what they needed. So it's pretty customized based on what the instructor needs.
Right. And then how are the captions going to be used? What's going to happen there? It's going to look like this. We have two options on our form. We can either give them a Google Drive link or we can do an upload to the ACC Media server. If it goes to the media server, then our liaison is going to work with our IT department to add the caption video to what's already there on the server. And then if it is a Google Drive link, then we're going to upload and give access. And then they can upload the video and captions to their own YouTube account if they choose.
We don't have a repository of all videos at the institution. We in fact have some challenges which we always seem to be talking with the institution about storage. An incredible amount of storage required. So at this point we have sort of dispersed storage based on the user and how they want to have their media. It seems like it makes sense that you would have a library or a repository of videos, but the college is not ready to invest in that mega amount of storage space at this point.
So then we have some questions that keep coming up. So if you will, our FAQs. Do you use auto-generated captions? As Steve was discussing a bit earlier, sometimes the captionist may try that just to see if it'll speed the process along. Sadly, 9.5 chances out of 9.5 chances, no, 10 chances, it probably isn't going to be as efficient. How do we handle captioning requests for copyrighted material? Oh my. If that copyrighted material is already hosted publicly, YouTube perhaps, then we can do that. However, we can't host that copyrighted material on our server. And we have, wow, have we struggled with this one. Copyright can be, not can be, it is often a bear. For good reason, absolutely for all good reasons, just being aware of it and being ready to face it head on.
Have you ever,
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, have you ever asked the person that has the video on YouTube, hey, I would like to use this, I can caption it for you? Have you?
We've also asked our professors if they know the person. Sometimes they're working with a friend. We have gotten positive responses. More often than not, we get no response.
We have a story about an old DVR tape, and one that is used extensively. You may know it, called Life on Earth, Richard Attenborough. We had to go to England to get copyright release. The answer? No. You may not. How about if, I mean, we tried every which way possible. How about if we don't attach it to the video? No, you may not alter it. How about, I mean, every possible way we tried. And the estate said, no, you can't alter it in any way. And so we were stuck. I think we did a transcription.
Yes.
I think is what we did, a separate transcription, which is not equal access, but it gets you started. Now, since then, instructors, I think we have an ongoing joke where we said we're going to go into their closets and find that DVR and throw it away, because
Well-
they've got other versions of it
Right.
now, that you can.
And you have to be careful, because if it's DVR, you're only allowed to keep that for X number of months before you can't use it, and then it becomes a copyright violation. So if they're using something on DVR from 3 years ago, they're already violating copyright.
We didn't get into that, but.
I was gonna say, you don't have the copyright police for your district, right?
Exactly, so. Can we do it? VHS, DVDs, we can, but we have to get them switched over. We need them as MP4 video files. So what we do then is we work with our media department,
But
and
again,
they're,
that's a violation of copyright.
so we have to get it so we can stream it, and
We'll look into that. They're pretty good about
They might-
copyright material.
They might grant permission, but yeah, that's still changing the format.
making myself a note. Can we create transcripts instead of captions? Okay.
What's the difference?
Same time.
Good question.
Well, the thing about it, that's what we get asked. What's the difference? What do you do? Well, as Steve was saying, a transcript is not in lieu of captions. Again, that is not equal access. So we have to be cautious about doing that. On the other hand, we have a professor right now who's doing podcasts, 2 or 3 of them a week. Okay, there is no video. Yes, we do transcripts for that, absolutely, because we just haven't quite figured out how to put the captions in the air above the little thing that's moving.
What if a person is talking and you can see them talking, but there's nothing that changes scenery-wise? They're not like pointing and doing this, and then it would, so essentially, if you did not have their face, it would be no different than a podcast. Would a transcription be okay for that?
Not sure what you're asking.
Well, I have a couple of instructors that they lecture just by having a camera pointed at their face.
Right here,
Yeah.
talking head.
Yeah, talking head.
Right. Well, that's what they're putting out there, so that's what you work with. You don't eliminate the image. I mean, they want the image.
But I mean, would a transcription work for something like that if the syncing did not matter?
Well, the syncing does matter, and it should be closed captioned.
Why don't we just outsource it? Because it costs too much money. And as we've talked about, we actually did our research a couple of years ago and looked at several, I think it was like half a dozen, different entities who could do outsourcing for us, and then of course calculated our own cost. And we're every fiscal year it's roughly 10 to 15,000 for our 5 captionists, and we get 100 hours or 6,000 minutes for that. And we're not just talking about classroom material. Our college, anything that they put on the website, they will often say to us, can we get this captioned, please? So that's another exciting thing too, that there are those higher up in the college who are now going, yes, we need to be accessible all the way around.
There are different departments that have accounts with third-party caption providers and use them, primarily marketing and a couple of other areas, but we do have the capacity to do it in-house.
And then of course we always have our challenges. As we said earlier, if we have a rambling professor, if we have someone who has an accent, a very strong accent, as an interpreter, when I'm interpreting in a classroom, I have the option to turn and more or less read the professor's lips as I'm interpreting. And I actually need to do that sometimes because when I have the sound coming in from the side, I can't really distinguish. Same thing with our captionists. That can be very difficult. They're listening to it through headphones.
And the content too. Our captionist liaison had to do a physics lecture, and with
An entire semester
all
of physics
kinds of
lectures.
language, definitions, etc. And he said, you know, that just took me a long time to, you know, to get it right.
So, and there you go. Thank you so much. Appreciate all your questions. If you have any further questions, I have my cards with me. I'll be glad to give that to you. And it has this address on the back of it for you. You are welcome. Email, call us, ask us any questions. And if there's something that we can actually come to you in person or via video, Skype or something like that, if there's any way we can help you, please let us know.